Hey all, welcome back to another episode on SaaS GCC partnership podcast series. This is Shankar. I'm founder of Coot. I'm going to be your host for today's episode. We discuss with very different leaders when it comes to the enterprise tech sales and the GCC practices. And today with us we have Amit. Amit is a senior finance leader from one of the largest media company in the world. So Amit, without much ado, I would like you to introduce about yourself to the audience.
Hey, hi everyone. I'm Amit. Uh, Quick professional background. I am a qualified chartered accountant. Back in 2004, I was born and brought up in Calcutta, and looking for opportunities, I moved down to Delhi back in 2004, and for last 20 plus years, I've been in Delhi, predominantly working in the space of BPO and GCCs. First 6 years was I was working with Global Captive Center at that point of time, which was the largest one we had in India. So I was there for span of 6 years, and then I moved to a GCC, which was newly created for a global charitable institution. I was there for 7 years, and then moved to a media organization, and where I have been for 7 years. So predominantly in the space of leading GCCs or their centers for a region or global, mainly in finance domain. That's what my key area of experience has been. Yes, it has been a journey from what I see from 2020, 2004 to 2025. The world has changed a lot. So yes, that's a quick background about me, Shankara. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Amit, for sharing the intro. So you mentioned you worked with very different captives, and now they call GCC. So could you tell a quick background about without mentioning the name, saying that which are the different kind of GCCs and what kind of functions they do for their global companies? I think that will be also be helpful for the people to understand what
Right.
GCCs from the finance perspective and what kind of role they are doing. Yeah.
So as I said, it's the world has changed between 2004 to 2024. The world has changed, how we operate, what we operate, and the expectation as well from the parent has changed. When I initially started, predominantly it was more of a transactional activity being done in the GCCs, and most of your high-end work was kept in the headquarter or a parent organizations, right? But as the world evolved, and I would say, especially after the COVID era, I would term that as a COVID era, the world has changed drastically in last 5 6 years, where now GCCs are partnering or sitting on the table for the organization where the decisions are made, where the agreements are held in terms of the strategy for the organization and delivering value to the parent organization. So I would state that the journey has started from just being a transactional processing organization to a partner sitting on the table for the organization in the strategic decision. That has been a big change in outlook, how GCCs have operated in last 20 years.
Got it, Amit. But could you give some practical examples of what kind of transformational work the GCC have done and what kind of impact it has created for the parent organization for the headquarters or even anywhere in the world, right?
Right.
That could make the people understand, what we are talking about.
So to first is touching on what we used to do and what we are doing today. So we used to do transactional work of AP, AR, a bit of reporting, right? That's what it was all about, a month end, as we say, or a R2R process that was there in the past. But now, if you see, GCC have evolved to the next step of controllership, where controller sits within the GCC, where FP&A works are done, where people partner with CFOs directly, right? They work for the CFO of now. You would see change in where the entire HR services are delivered from GCC, right? Because in the past it was just payroll, but now no more is payroll. It's beyond payroll, where we see HR partners sitting in GCC as well, delivering what is expected from HR. So that has evolved a big time. Okay. Now and that's a big transformation if you would see, just doing basic work to delivering all to this extent of depending on the maturity of a GCC, people are dealing with auditors, delivering directly to the uh, 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 to external bodies as well, the balance sheet, preparing it, delivering it, getting it done. So they are managing everything from GCCs. I have seen controllers now part of GCC or sitting in the same location as GCC, where GCCs are, because that's key. That's key. That's where your accountant sits. Now, GCCs are no more seen as just somebody remotely working, doing some basic P2P or accounts receivable or R2R. No, that's not the way. Now, actually, they are more seen as an accountant, right? Who are delivering what is expected, and they are directly contributing to the global strategies of the organization. Now, global strategy can be cost, global strategy can be your cash flow, because cash is king, as we say, and as more and more we are seeing the pressure of cash, GCCs are being partnering in terms of delivering those global strategies for the CFOs and CEOs. So that's a big shift, how it started versus where we are today.
Sure, man, sure. But I will still probe further, right? I think when we talk to so many other GCC leaders, they say that, for example, one of the another large GCC, BFS GCC, they say that 30% of their tech product is being rolled from from India, right? Which is a big number for the size of the BFS giant, right? So like that, similarly, could you tell what has been changing? I'm not, again, this question is not specific to your experience alone. I mean, I'm saying you as a leader, you are a speaker in multiple places, you have a ringside view of the various other GCs, how they are operating. So the
Right.
question is on what has changed, right? I think even background is, even I worked with Infosys in the past, with the company, in the captive, right? But from there till what we see is a drastic transformation, right? So what you are really witnessing, right? I think as a finance team. So probably I'm double taking that. Any thoughts there?
So first is, if I talk in terms of the numbers, what has changed is there's a big chunk of, I would say, 75-80% people sitting in GCC from a accounting perspective, right, or
Wow.
from process perspective. Now you can term what is called as a retained organization, which sits with the parent organization, but those are very limited people, just the leadership role, depending on which we call as GPOs or global process owners or global accounting owners, and those roles will sit with the parent organization. But if you see most of the GCCs which are mature and which really want to move ahead in this curve, are moving most of their team to these locations or GCC capability centers, as we say. Now, this term has been changing. We started with SSC, then it became GBS, now it's called GCC. And there's a reason for it, because if you see the journey, now it was shared services, which means predominantly somebody doing those transactional work centrally, right? Then it became GBS, Global Business Services, where globally we were delivering those services. Now it's called capability centers, because they are seen as capability centers because they are strategic partner. As I said, they are delivering value which is beyond cost. Now value can be in terms of efficiency, value can be in terms of standardizations, which is the biggest challenge. Standard easy to implement any changes in the organization, because change management has a huge cost for an organization. Now if you have large number of people sitting in the same location and they have the same goal, right, then it becomes so much easier to navigate through the organization and penetrate in the organization any changes which is coming in. So that has been one. And also in terms of compliances, now world is very complex. Every organization, every country has their own compliances to be met. Now it becomes so much easier if you have a right skill placed in those talents, in those capability center, to to comply with those compliances, right? Easy, because the world is changing. The compliances are changing every day. Might be in different domain, different compliances, right? It becomes so much easier to actually adopt those changes and apply it. So that has also been a very key. And when we see capability center, that's what the capability center talks about: being agile to changes, being agile to the needs of the customer. Now, in the past, customer was talked about, but now customer is actually the focus for all the GCCs, where we talk about customer as a king, or a customer centric organizations. If you see, that's where the world is moving, is that you need to be customer focused, right? You have heard multiple leaders, we are right, which talks about you take care of the customer, you take care of your employee, and the customer is taken care of. So it becomes so key that for us, our employees are our customer, our stakeholders are our customer, external parties are our customer. So if we take care of them and we deal with those customers as one. Now that has been a biggest transformation shift that I have seen, as you have shared. And the another shift that I have seen in the mindset of people is that people want now to act as entrepreneur, no more as somebody just a back office job, you're done and you're gone. No, people look for people who like to be entrepreneur, who owns end to end, which I have seen that now. Giving you an example, in the past, those policies or those process were made somewhere in the parent organization, and somebody used to say, please follow these steps. No more. Now,
Okay.
GCCs are seen as SME experts of those processes because they are dealing it with day in and out. They know what customer face issues are. They know what process issues are. They work directly with those projects or in terms of transformations, right? To get those things resolved. They are the one who drive policy. They are the one who makes policy. They are the one who implement those policies. So just not being adopting a policy to becoming a key part either in framing the policy or even owing to make the policy for the organization. That has been a key shift. Now that's what, if we talk about transformation or a shift in GCCs for last 20 years, that's the biggest shift that I have seen in my experience.
Fantastic, Amit. I think for a very comprehensive answer, right? I think even you touched upon multiple other questions we'd like to ask, but kind of asking what is the background for this transformation shift? If I put the technology GCC in the parlance, right, is predominantly the lack of talent at that cost. It's not the complete lack of talent, but it's lack of talent, the cost. They want I think India is being a STEM, education country, right? I think it produces millions of people, right? But when it comes to finance, what is the reason why it has? Is it a natural progression which has happened, or is there any specific moments, right? Is there any watershed moment why it has transformed?
So very, very well asked. Now, we all know after COVID, all the organizations are going through a cost pressures. That's given. That's driven. Whether you pick up any region in the world, that's going through a cost pressure. But initially, GCC were seen as a cost saving opportunity, right? But however, there are other locations as well apart from India, right? And you see those global hubs coming as Poland, Mexico, India, further in Europe. There are multiple locations which are coming as a GCCs. You would see Philippines as a good GCC from a customer care perspective, call center perspective, right? Now, each market has a talent pool, right?
Right,
Depending on those talent, you would have seen that India hasn't grown as big as in terms of call center as compared to Philippines because they are very good with those customer service, right? Now, when it came to India, as an access to the talent pool, now India is divided into multiple regions, as we say, north, east, west, south. Each region has its own talent pool, actually. And what happens is there are regions which are very good with finance talent pools. There are regions which are very good with the IT talent pool. Now, with people actually ease of moving from one location to another, actually the talent pool has been available across India now. So it's no more that southern part of India is more of IT, northern part of India is more of finance. No more. You would see more of GCCs coming up in Bangalore and Hyderabad, which
right.
was initially in northern part of India, right? So So that has evolved, and that's one of the reason that India has grown so big, right? Because the talent pool is available across India, it's just not limited to certain regions of it. And tier two, three cities are becoming more and more available, right? Government is working through that. Organizations are working through that. You always hear tier two and tier three, and with work from home facilities, even there are certain organizations which give completely work from home. The availability of talent pool has evolved like multifold, multiple times over here. So that's one. But why finance is moving? So as you shared, this has been a journey. If you see, initially we started with few pieces of finance and few pieces of IT, but now as we have matured, and with this COVID era, there was a big factor of trust. Let's let's
Okay.
let's be real. Right. People were not asked to work from home because of multiple compliances in certain part of the world that you data was key. Now, post-COVID, that trust has built because we haven't heard or seen any incidents happening around any trust data issues. So that has helped actually that people having those trusts that GCC can deliver, right? One is building that trust, and the second is people were actually delivering more. So if you have done some, if you have seen those studies that people were 20% more in terms of
Okay.
the delivery than what they used to be. So that has also happened, and that has shifted. That has been the biggest shift of mind for people or a leader. That yes, GCC operates, and GCC operates with trust, and GC and people, and the factor that people don't work from home, that has died out now. So if you see,
Okay.
almost all the organization has work from home policy, whether 2 days, 3 days, 5 days, it depends. That's fine, but it talks about that stigma has gone away now, that people won't work from home, and that was big stigma as a leader for me in India, that I
Okay.
always used to fear that whether people would be delivering what is expected from home or not. Now they were
Okay.
managing their work, their family life with all the issues going around, and they were still delivering. And I would say the
Yeah.
delivery was much of a higher quality. Okay,
Wow.
and that's what I've experienced during the COVID era. That team was available. That's fine. We have to manage as a leader their personal life as well, situations as well. But then the quality, the output was actually of a very high quality. It's just that you take care of your team, as I shared. They will take care of what is required. Yes, so that has changed, and this journey of moving more and more complex work to GCCs will keep on evolving, Shankara. Over the next 5 years, I I foresee that there would be a big change in terms of what GCC is delivering. Right now, there are very limited GCCs which are in the maturity curve, which are ahead, where almost everything is done as part of the GCCs. It's just that the balance sheets are signed by CEO and CFOs sitting in headquarters. But we would
Mm.
see that shift happening because of the talent, of the skill, of the agility of capability centers going big time, and the trust which is being built in terms of the eyes of the key or senior stakeholders, that's growing big time high. So that will help and that will evolve. It's a ever evolving stage, and I see next 3, 4, 5 years you'd see that. Just beyond finance, you'd see from an IT perspective, those were just resolutions, issues, resolutions, basic implementation. Now you'd see lot of CTOs, lot of your IT heads sit in GCC, because that's where the real challenge sits. That's where actually the game is for them to provide those real time feedback or real time actual scenarios, what's happening in the world, rather than now leaders don't want to just hear yes. Those days of yes is gone. It's more of people are asking you speak up. And in India, I've seen now that people are ready to speak up, people are ready to share, which was not the case 5, 10 years back, where people hesitated. So this Gen Z will change the game over the next 5 years, and I'm pretty sure you'll see that shift coming in.
Fantastic, Amit. So when it comes to, there is one extra challenge with respect to the finance or the accounts operation is like you also mentioned there are multiple countries which has a multiple regulatory aspects, right? So sitting from India as a GCC, how do you ensure the people understand different regulatory compliance, right? How much amount of effort you are giving on the team to I think because even within India, if you look at it, from GST to various, I think keep changing, right? I think if you multiply it with n number of companies for the large MNC are working. So how do you cope up with that challenge, Amit?
I would say that in terms of you, there's zero tolerance for any non-compliances, right? Because
Okay,
those non-compliances can lead to what kind of
disasters.
situations we don't know. So generally, organization like to play safe, and that's pretty fair. Okay, where organization want to play safe in terms of compliances. Okay, in terms of global compliances, you are right. It's very complex. So how we do how we have been dealing that in the past is that we used to have global teams, okay, who used to partner with big fours or consultants, local consultants to figure out what's changing in the world, right? Now, what has been key over here is the transparent communication. Let's
Okay,
be very honest, and timely communication. So that has been key, and we have made sure those communications happen on time, and the impact of those changes which is coming in. Now, that is one, but in terms of resources, right? As I said, you need to have entrepreneurial mindset from an employee perspective, right? So, you need to hire good talents, though this might cost you, but then the saving it does in the longer run is much higher than what you pay as a plus 10 plus 20% from a market value, right? So that has been the key factor for me when I look at talents, when I hire as a leader as any talent. And that has been the changer for me, that implementing those changes, those incremental changes which keeps on coming. One is from a process perspective, it needs to be dealt manually. Now there are changes, complex changes which comes where IT do help in terms of taking care of our systems, right? Now, that is key, that you need to have a global systems, you need to have robust systems, do away with as much as possible the local systems, okay? The subsystems, which are standalone systems, if you do away with that and push your 80-20 logic, that your 80% is global standardized, I think so that helps a big time in terms of managing those changes, those complex changes which is coming in actually. So that has been key for me in terms of how do we manage. Yes, there are times where we get delay, right? Which will happen, which is bound to happen. That's the reality of life. We are not always there. World is not perfect, but we live with those reality, and your appetite of an organization to absorb risk also plays a key role over here. That as an organization, are you ready to adopt that risk, or you say no, we don't want to adopt that risk? Then you find some different solutions, might be local solutions. Even in my past, I have seen that they have a certain complex world, right? To give an example, right, finding a Chinese resource in India, it's not easy, right? And a good accountant, it's a very different mix, right? So we agreed that we would outsource it locally. It's as simple as that. There's no point in putting a resource and a process which will be very fragile. If a person moves on or change his role, then you get to ground zero to start right starting. So we have made those decisions in terms of knowing that those compliances or complexity will arise. You need to make smart decisions or wise decisions, which is best for the organization as well, just not for a GCC, from an overall organization perspective.
great. You just mentioned about your tech team also helping a lot in the financial operations, right? Could you tell a little more about what is your tech adoption, right, as a GCC, and how is it changing, right? Probably
Right.
I have follow-up questions like how the procurement happens and all, but like to understand how the tech adoption and the kind of tech usage in the GCs as such, especially in the finance function, what it changes, Amit.
See, it's technology play a very important role when it comes to GCCs in terms of if you want to have a mature GCCs. Remember, the number of fragmented systems you have, the cost of operations goes very high, and then it defeats the purpose of GCC, right? You won't have standardized process, you won't have standardized flows, and the amount of effort you would be spending in terms of both IT cost and resource cost, it would be huge. And that's the reason that people or organization moves to standardized system. Now, I have seen from a organization perspective, depending on the appetite of the organization, from a cost perspective, from the global play perspective, that they want to adopt global systems. SAP, Oracle, we know why SAP overtook Oracle from us. We started with Oracle in 2004. Now you hear more of the organizations are on SAP, right? Now because of the global solutions. So from a GCC perspective, what is key is your adoption to this technological tools, right, or systems, because it helps you to move towards standardization. As it helps you to move standardization, now whether that process is delivered in US or India, Europe, or Warsaw, doesn't matter, right? Because the process are fixed in the system and the system drives the process, right? You need brains, and with AI, with more automation to, like we have seen in AP, the more and more of automation, the system is automatically processing the invoices, right? That drives a lot from an adoption perspective. Now, adoption might vary, as I shared, depending on how much transformation the organization is ready to have, what's their outlook for next 1-2 years. But the key factor for any adoption for me has been the ROI. Now, it's a very fast-paced world. In 2-3 years, the entire technology is going to change. If somebody come back to me and say the ROI is 3 years, I have a big question. Now, either my organization, the factors which drive my organization might change, okay, or the external factors might change, or the technology, which is today, will totally get disrupted in 2 years' time. So all of these factors plays a very key important role for me. What does the ROI look like from an adoption perspective? Is ROI of 1 and 1.5 year max? It looks okay. And if somebody comes to me personally, is just my personal view that 3 years, 5 years, without actually knowing that in 5 years world is going to change, it doesn't work. It doesn't work in reality. So that has been one key way for me to look at ROI from an adoption perspective, and also I would say the readiness of an organization, because change in any organizations bring a lot of turbulence, right?
Got it.
So if you replace the entire system, it's a huge effort. So how much are you ready to invest in that from a people perspective as well, training them, making sure from it's a top down bottom, right? That people, you have to, there's no other way out, right? That's if you do that, I think so that plays that gives a good payback, and it's a big payback on an organization from a long term perspective.
Going deeper into it, Amit, right? Uh, one of the finance leader is talking like, after the ERP, right? There are not big financial, tech innovation has really happened, right? I think I don't know how you call the RPAs, how much it stands. So could you tell some few tech initiatives being done which completely transform the way the finance used to function, right? I think which are the interesting things which you have done.
I'll give you a couple of examples. Now, in the past, we used to manage our ticketing or issues through some inbox and blah blah and multiple other ways. Now, we decided to adopt ServiceNow. It was a big change for an organization. To give you a simplest of an example, okay.
Sure.
Now, training global organization, we had operations in almost 180 countries, okay, or 100 plus countries. I would say 180 countries, but 100 plus countries.
Okay.
Training everyone to to service now to raise tickets and forcing them to come down to service now to raise tickets, okay, was a big challenge.
Sure.
But then we adopted it because from a long-term perspective, it's key to know what issues are there. How do we do further analytics in terms of knowing what's wrong in the process? How do you fix those processes from a long-term perspective? That's one. But then you should also be flexible to understand the customer need, because the cost of someone's time to raise those tickets was also there. So we came up with a solution how to deal with that. Okay, so that's one side. But when it comes to finance, you are right that ERP has been the biggest change from or any systems that we implement has been the biggest change. But I see AI has played a key role when it comes to FP&A, which is a very high-end process. Which when it comes to analytics, right? You are using systems, you are using AI to generate dashboards, which is actually helping to know what's happening in the world, actually knowing what can be your best case, worst case scenarios.
Could you give examples, Amit, there? Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but
Oh, yeah. So Power BI, okay,
okay.
has been very key. We have been using that, and that has actually helped us in terms of actually knowing our actuals. And it's a real time. Remember that what people need is a real time. Now, the the most important thing today for any leader is to have the data on the right time and on the real time basis.
Right.
Now, if I give you a month's back data, which used to happen 10 or 12 years back, you used to make decisions. Assume you are 1 month back, and within those 30 days, 40 days, the world would have changed. the
Right.
the norms would have changed. Just imagine. But now today leaders want data. Now, data plays a key role over there. So Power BI, CXOs, if I talk about, or organization looking at how they can give a global view of their budgeting, forecasting. Okay, so that has played a very key role, I would say. On a click of a button, you have the data, real-time data, right? Which sits with you. The faster the decision is in today's world, you are in the game. If you make a decision 30 days later, most of the probability is that you would make a good decision, I would say. But will it be as effective as you wanted it to be? It depends, right? Those are question marks. So these tools have actually helped in terms of doing data analytics has grown big time when it comes to AI. Now we are seeing small pockets. In past, we were talking about bots, right? Now that bot 5 years back, you were only talking about bots. Now that has been replaced with AI, as I see. People are more talking about AI. People are talking about ChatGPT, right? See the usage of ChatGPT in today's world. People are using it like everything, right, in the organization to find answers to their query. Organizations are creating the in-house chat, which is linked to your DTPs to get you answers. And I was in a recently a year back in, I think so 6 months back into the conference, and there's one of the organization which has actually implemented a bot which helps you to create DTPs. One, and the second is also it acts as a knowledge base where you can just type your question and you can find answers. Though it's a learning curve, obviously it's a machine learning which will take some time, but then the journey has started where people are just not talking about somebody come bot doing your half of the work and gone, because people has realized that if a bot is just doing half of the work, still you need resources to do half. So your investment might not have given you what your return you would like to have. So AI I have seen is much advanced that I feel. And the way the world is changing, we will have to become transformative in terms of adopting it. Now, yes, adopting it blindly is not what I am recommending, but adopting it as per your organization needs. So go and look out. The world is changing. If you go and look out, there would be a solution which is already invented rather than you recreating your own wheel. And we have seen that it's happening actually, where for different organization solutions are there. It's just about tweaking it and bringing it to your organization. So, and I was in a recent discussion where it was said that the ROI as soon as we implement is 50%. So imagine ROI of 50% as soon as we implement it, and the consultant was that, Amit, this is not the best game. We are putting the worst game knowing you. So this is what, as a minimum, we expect, and definitely over the period of 2-3 months, we would see a big jump in this number. But ROI is almost 50%, and they did share that it's based on their past implementation over the last 6 months, or as big as an organization. So this is changing. The AI is changing. Now, will it replace finance? I personally don't believe it. Might be replaces your task, which is low-end task, but then you need people actually to deliver, right? If something gets stuck, now everything is not 100% delivered by bots. So you need people who are smart, and that's where actually people of Gen Z or everyone will have to work on their skills to for future. That how do they skill up themselves for future? That would be a very key role, and especially for India over the next 5, 10 years, that the job profile would change big time rather than just looking at people who can process 1,000 invoices or 500 invoices a month. No, it will be more of a people who can actually do uh, solutions actually over there, right? Who can resolve and then can act as a partner to feed back to the leadership what's working, what's not working, how can you improve upon. So finance will have to make a bit of shift towards technology as well. So I would say it will be a blend of mix. Yeah.
Interesting multiple points you mentioned, Amit, right? I think probably I will connect all these things in the subsequent questions. But one question I'd like to ask, you mentioned about earlier you used to talk about bot. So do you think that the RPA is gone? Is more of AI today, or you still see a game of RPA? I think I used to make BRS, for that I tried to make a bot earlier, right? I'm sure now it would have been far better. So what kind of bots you have used in the past? How it is transformed now into AI? Could you throw some light there?
Right, sure. So bot has been there, right? It is still there, but as I said, you have to understand, is it really giving you an ROI or just investing in a bot because I want to organization are doing it, I want to try and test it. It's it depends on the organization. I know I have friends, when I speak to them, they might have 100 bots in their organization. They say many a times the bot is not giving you enough ROI, but they are still being run, right? Because there's a cost to implement, there's a cost to manage those bots as well and maintain those bots. Now, we were touching earlier on a point of compliances. The world has changed big time. A smallest of the compliance change actually halt the entire process where the bot was doing, and you jump into manual. Now, if you haven't resourced yourself to manage it during those 1 month, 1 week, 2 week period, then your backlogs get created, right? So still you would have those issues and challenges when it comes to bots, right? And space. So I would say bot would die out, they would grow. Now whether, and there are areas where this has been pretty good. Bots are actually maturing, right? It's maturing. If you see in the field of science now, they have created bot which does operations, right? They
In finance, which are the bots you have used, Amit, where you have
We
given a
have
reasonable
used
success for you?
bots. Actually, we have used bots to do cash applications in the
Okay,
past. Okay, we have used bots to process reconciliations. Okay, we have used bots to do journal processing, which is very common one. Bots do
right.
journal processing, right? We have used bots to do a bit of invoice processing. Okay. So we have done those bots, and we have done bots to do a lot of reconciliations, whether it's bank reconciliations or automations. So we have done that. We have done those bots. Okay. So I have seen I had different experience with bots, right? In some areas we were successful, in some area we were not that successful as we wanted to, and that's the reason I shared. It depends. One is uh, how standardized your process would be, right? That's a key
Okay.
tendency. How less the changes would be in those processes, whether from an organization
Mm.
perspective, from your system perspective, or from your local compliances perspective. This three also plays a key role. Imagine if every month there is a change coming in organization and you have implemented a bot, it would be a nightmare to manage those bots, right?
All right.
Fixing those bots. Now, so that is very key when you're implementing a bot, knowing at least for a year what your roadmap look like for that for that process perspective, right? At least to what you know, what is unknown will always be unknown. So you will deal with it as it comes, but at least try to figure out what is known, what is the future for next 8, 9 months. So these are the areas where we have implemented bots in the past, but yeah. So and you talked about bot to AI. I think so. AI will it will be a mix. Still it will be a mix because these bots would still be there. They would still be doing where they have been successful, right? But the area of failures, I think so, they will be replaced with AI, or might be another 2 years down the lane there might be something new, which I don't know, which is unknown. I'm pretty sure once the consumption of this AI is high and that we would see success or failure, there might be something new coming in the technology space. Definitely in a year or two. Might be 3 years, 4 years. It took like 4 years for bot. I remember speaking about bot in 2015, and in 2020 this AI thing started popping up. 5 years journey. It might be much faster because technology is changing much faster now. So another 3 years or 4 years we might see something else popping up apart from AI.
Yeah. Great, Amit. You also mentioned that you have 75% of the at least the finance workforce working from the GCC, right? So when it comes to the adopting any new tech tool, because when I say 75% majority of the execution workforce from here, how much of freedom you have in terms of selecting, doing, working with the new technology? Could you throw
Yeah,
any lights? Again, not specific to
right,
your GCC, I'm saying
right,
overall in general.
right.
Yeah.
See, one of the key factor for how much, so one of the key factor is how much are GCC empowered.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing for GCC to make decisions. There are GCCs I know who are fully empowered to adopt the tools that they want. Okay. Uh, and those are GCCs where I would say 90% of your work sits in GCC. Only
Okay.
10% or 15% it sits outside GCC, but that's fine. Because you're 90, as I said, any standardization over 80% is very good for an organization. So
Got it. Yeah.
so one that plays a very key role. I have seen that. The second is uh, how much say you have on the table when you are on the leadership. That
Okay.
can you make decisions or not? Now it depends. So those are the two key factors when it comes for a GCC to have a say whether they want to adopt a tool or not, right? Uh,
Okay.
so these are the two, and the third can be that you are a small GCC operating for a particular company which is not of a huge size,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
you play a strategic role. You might have that decision making power to do it. Remember that, and it's a journey. It's a journey. It's not on day zero, right?
Okay.
Your GCC would have a say that this is the tool that we want to adopt, we want to go for. We have done that. I have done that in the past. This is a tool, as I talked about service now we want to implement. So we had a say, yes, those deals are done globally because being a global organization, but then you need to push your
The
case.
GCC.
You need to push your case. Obviously, there's also
Okay.
the element of cost, right? Now GCCs are always a cost center. So what is the ROI as I shared? If your business case makes sense and give benefit or efficiency to any organization, I don't think so. They would say no. Any organization won't say no until unless they know there's a big change coming in and they want to pause this any change in the system.
That is insightful. So you also mentioned about in our conversation the other day, you say that as a finance team, you also part of the lot of procurement, right? I think apart from procuring your own tech, but you're also part of the procurement of other tech, right? And as a in a way we call it the gatekeeper, the gatekeeper role, right? So how do you evaluate? I think probably a while ago you also mentioned about one of the payback period is you are looking at 1.5 to 2 years, right? But what are the other things you as a finance person, while someone is coming and giving a proposal of, hey, this is what we like to procure, how do
Right.
you evaluate, Amit?
The cost plays a key factor. Now, if you are a global organization, you'd like to have limited vendors where you can deal with them globally. It's just not that cost. But then there are other factors, right, in terms of dealing with vendors, in terms of getting the right quality, right on time, what's best happening, right? And that's the reason that you might have seen a lot of organization importing furnitures when they are creating new GCCs from international vendors rather than getting it in India locally, right? There's a cost, there's a huge cost import which happens, but then they do it because that's how what their global standardization, global standard is, right? So that's fine. So it's always balancing between cost, but then what is the value add that you are getting if you are if there's an incremental cost attached to it. So that plays a very key role from a procurement and from a finance perspective, looking at from a financial leadership perspective. The second is for me would be your vendor's ability to scale up. Now, if they say this is what my limitation is, I can't do it, then it's a big question mark, right? If you're a global organization, unless you are a middle size or a small size GCCs, if you're supporting a large organization, you need vendors which can easily scale up to the needs. If today we have 100 license, tomorrow I want 1,000 license, it doesn't take like a month to get that. It's just a day or two, right? Which is required. One. The second is flexibility. Now, flexibility plays a key role when we are selecting anything, right? If I talk about IT tools, changes are never ending, and the flexibility of our partner or a vendor in terms of adopting those changes, whether internal, external, plays a very key role. Now, there have been scenarios where I had both experiences, somewhat very good, somewhat not that good, because their system was not flexible at all. And then later on, we had to actually move from that vendor. And I'm talking about payroll. So payrolls are very local right now. We need specialized local vendor provider. But since their system was not flexible, uh, because to make any changes used to take 2 weeks. It was not feasible. Remember, we have payroll every month. You can't wait for 2 months actually to get any changes implemented. So we decided to move on. So flexibility do play a very big role when we are looking for any such change. The third is how easy are their systems, right? Now, to give you a classic example, if you go to any app, is it if it is too hard to navigate, you would do away with, you find an alternative, right? In today's world, everybody use smartphone, iPhone, right? People who use iPhone, they want to stick to iPhone. It's about their user experience and the change, right? How easy it is to use or navigate through. So that plays a very key role, and their ability to support in any change management in the organization. Remember, any tool, any new things we bring into the organization, change management is the biggest and the key. Because if the adoption is not there, then there's no point of bringing anything right into the organization. So that plays a very key role for me. Next one is how easily it can be integrated to any subsystems or existing systems. If it is too complex, if it is, as I said, about inflexible to adopt those internal subsystems, it's a big no. It's a big no, right? So that's also there. And as we touched about a lot about compliances, obviously, data integrity is the most vital thing today in any world as we move to more and more of cloud or SaaS. So data integrity and compliances, how good are they with, right? Uh, and uh, and how fast are they with, rather than just being a vendor, but becoming a partner of providing that guidance. These are the changes which is coming in, and that's the reason you go for Big Four as a consultant, because their awareness around the global changes so huge and so fast that it helps you actually to start preparing for something which is coming up, right? So that plays with data security and changes the risk management that, and we talked about the risk earlier as well, that how good they can support with mitigating those risks through systems rather than putting manual processes around it. So from a finance perspective, these are five or six different key factors that plays a role for me. And obviously ROI, if I mix everything together, how does the ROI look like? Sometimes you have to go with a negative ROI. I would say a big negative ROI, but then the benefit of saving cost on other areas actually gives you a long-term gain over there rather than just looking at a short-term one. Yeah. I can't hear
Detailed
you.
answer.
Thank you.
And so assuming like for a particular requirement, you have a global vendor, right? But there is also yeah, a good decently funded startup. I'm not talking about bootstrap, right? Because that might be a existential question might come from a large company, but a good funded. How do you choose between these two? Assuming all the things have been take for both sides, right?
See, two things. One is if you are a global organization, you try to avoid anything which is local unless there is a local solution which needs to be implemented. I talked about a classic example of payroll. Now you need a payroll provider in most of the countries, right? And then there are certain countries where you have to go with local one. You can't have global one because they don't have their presence over there. One. So if you always have the standard of going global, then definitely it's organization policy as well, right? Which supersede everything because you have to go as per the policy, and there are reasons why we have policies, right? Now there are organizations which actually want to support these startups, right? And we have seen that you want like 10% of the vendor as a startup. We also have those kind of organizations. So you actually go and rent out and want to support those business. So but trust plays a very key role. What have been your feedback by your customers? And I give you a classic example. So in my past, we were looking for a global payroll vendors, and we almost nailed down to someone which was very new, 3 or 4 or 5 years into this business, and as a global vendor. And we were into a call as a reference with one of their stakeholders. And trust me, that feedback actually changed everything for them. We halted them because it's just not about money. It's just not about what you say, but what is key is also what is the experience which your customer faces, right? As I talked about flexibility, as I talked about your pace of change, as I talked about user acceptance, all were actually messed up. So that is very big risk that people do see when it comes to startups. Okay, now might be might be in Indians, and you're talking more mostly in terms of Indian scenario. We have there we do support that, but then what is there in the game actually makes that decisions, right? Uh, how big that contract or negotiations or that work is actually want to put yourself into that risk or not. Because remember, we know how many startups comes up and how many startups close every day, right? So that's the biggest risk that we see when it comes to startups uh, from an organization perspective. But if there are startups from apart from IT, you might still think of it. You do support it. I remember in past, and I talked about the service now, SAP, the support was given to a local vendor rather than to a global vendor in India. So we did that in the past, knowing the cost. We wanted to support that startup. So we did that, and we are talking about around 100 FTs that was outsourced to them, and they were not a big name in the market. I can't hear you, Shankara.
Yeah, it's very encouraging. Is it better? Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So when it comes to execution of your work, right? Um, sometime you will have a peak demand, right? I think it may not be as good as like a tech again, I will compare but for example, you have a transformation work, right? That you are implementing a new system. So how much you use it with your internal workforce and how much you will do it, no, you will take a support of a service provider. So what kind of situations, any,
It's
look
a
into?
mix, Shankara rightly pointed out. And it can be any situation, right? It's just not transformation. It can be any situation. It
Sure.
can be a workload at the year end. We are finance guys. There's a huge workload which comes at the year end, right? Uh, big transformation is coming in where 20% or 30% of your resources will be pulled into that project, right? And generally, we have seen global finance transformations coming in. So it depends, and it's a mix. My answer is a mix over here. There's no straight answer. One is what is the length of the transformation or the length of the requirement? If the length is like 1 month, 2 months, you bringing a external resource, training them on your process, and then your expectation to deliver it is very it is it's not fair from a new resource in a month's time. In your organization, you generally have 3 months, 6 months probation period where person comes, learns, and deliver, and then you are expecting someone coming in new and then deliver it in a month. Right? It's not fair. Okay, but what we have also done in the past is an organization has interns program where interns come in, they train themselves over the 3 4 months. You hire them as a consultant doing those small petty works which can save some time for your resources to deliver to the transformations. We have seen that. Or you have vendors which provides you consultants or contractors for 2 3 4 5 6 months who are experienced resources, though it costs you, but then you need experienced resources. Even because when it comes, and we also had hired consultants and big fours for transformation PM as a project management as well, right? Because that's and we have done that as well in the past. So it's a mix of it's a mixture, I would say, from an answer perspective. It depends how quick the need is and what your need is. Depending on organization to organization, I'm pretty sure everyone has their own way of operation over here. Some uses contractors, some uses interns, some always have a pipeline, or some has always those 10% purpose in their team to manage such exceptions. So there's no straight answer to this, Shankar.
I think the time goes by. I think I didn't even realize we're almost an hour. Not sure how much time you have, Amit. So, considering that, probably last two, three questions I would like to understand, right? So, even I also done a charter accountancy, but from there I moved on, different angle, right? So, what do you suggest, or I would say advise or suggest for a young finance professional who wants to make a career with the MNC, right? Now the good news, the opportunity for the finance professional to work with the MNC by sitting in their own hometown, right? I think so they don't need to really relocate themselves to a different country or anything, right? But what it takes to work with a homegrown company, right? I think Indian-based company to work with a foreign MNC. What are the contours, Amit?
Okay, good question, Shankara. My personal view, okay, when you work, it's a mindset shift between an Indian leader and a global leaders. There's a big mindset, and and the reason for that mindset is what your background has been, how you have seen your leaders grow, okay, how you have grown yourself. So, so, so it's a mindset which I've seen. It's not that Indian leaders are not successful. We have richest people in the world, but how many good leaders have you heard actually people appreciating you as a leader? Now, leader as a people leader, how many in the MNC you might talk about very few and be one, right? Ratan Tata might be Sir Ratan Tata might be one of them. You talk about as a people leader where people look up to as a leader, right? Yeah, I can't hear you, Shankara. Right. So, but if you look at global leader and global entrepreneur, you'd hear a lot of names, okay, coming up that people want to work with them, and there's a reason why. Okay.
Sure.
So there's a big shift between the two mindset. So and I had an opportunity of working when I was in my doing my chartered accountancy and my interns. I've seen Indian leaders, okay, and those were big organization at that point of time. Let me tell you, if I take names, everybody in Indian household would know those names, okay.
Yeah.
So I've seen those leaders, okay, and I've seen for last 20 years global MNCs, and I had different experiences because I've worked with leaders in US, I've worked with leaders in European market. I've worked with leaders in APAC market. So I've seen those different, and I've realized it's your culture, it's your background, it's how you have been brought up, what does the norm works in your country or your region. That's drive actually how the leadership style is. And it's good. You should always have a mix of leadership style. And for youngsters who actually are stepping into the journey or who are going to step into the journey, my only recommendation would be step out of your comfort zone. One, the reality versus what you have seen is not same. So that's the second. And third is I would say your career is like your fixed deposit. And I remember in my first organization we used to talk a lot about that. Okay. That it depends on you when do you want to mature your FD. So
Okay.
remember that the longer you go, the higher the value that you would earn. So might be initial stage, just focus on learning and being available to adopt any changes which is coming in. Be flexible around that. Okay.
Mm.
Uh, you are a young blood, you would be a young blood. So just be ready with anything and everything which is coming your way. Okay. Just be 500% focus on your career. There are a lot of uh, distractions around you. So just be very focused on what you want to achieve. And first 10 or 15 years of your career, what you learn or what you build yourself as a brand, that's what pay you for the remaining part of your 10, 15 years. That's what I have learned, and that's what I have experienced as well in my life. Okay. So and I followed that path actually. It helped me, my leaders, my coach helped me to follow that path. And that has worked successfully for me. I won't say it would work equally for everyone. No, it doesn't. But since it worked for me, that's what I am recommending to you. Try that out, see, and always check in 2, 3 years your journey of what you want to achieve and what's your pace, and try to have a coach or mentor uh, because they are experienced people. They would be unbiased towards you to tell you the reality of what's happening with you. Sometimes those are harsh reality, but then they tell you that something which is working for you, something which might not work for you, and that help you to do a course correction in your journey. So that's what my recommendation.
Nicely put, Amit. My other question is, we since we discussed about many tech products, right? Where do you see that there's a gap in the finance tech product as of now is there? For example, you already mentioned like what do you expect from a tech product, so I don't want to repeat that. But is there any gap which you really see that hey, these are the areas the current products are not really there, so that there is a possibility of imbibing that feature or that capacity with the people operating in that space related in the finance.
I would say that many a times the products are made to be sold rather than being customer friendly. That has been the biggest challenge that I have seen. And
Okay.
that's where I say flexibility.
Example? I'm sorry, always examples so that
I
people can relate.
was I was with we were just being invited to see a product and which was a competitor of a very big global product. It's a startup, okay. And we were sitting over there and looking at it and we were giving feedback and the only answer we got is it's not there right now. It's not there
Okay, not in our product roadmap. Okay.
in our product roadmap. So that is one of the biggest challenge when it comes to oh, understanding customer needs because the customer need it for their self, not for you. That's one thing. Don't be a sale guy. Be a customer focus oriented person. Okay, so that has been the biggest challenge for selecting a product because you are too much into sale. You just want to sell your product,
Right.
right? But the person who is on the other side is also smart enough. He's sitting on the table with you to understand what his needs are and how will you product deal with it. So I would recommend first understand the customer need, try to figure out what his needs are, why he needs it, and see if there is a solution
Which you can.
which you can put forward to them rather than selling what you have. I need an orange and you are selling me an apple saying this is the best fruit you can have, but I need orange, then I need orange. I don't need apple. It's as simple as that. You don't sell through.
Got it, Amit. So I think we almost reached our time, scheduled time. So thanks a million for for your time and sharing the valuable inputs, Amit. I'm sure, like me, the audience also would thoroughly enjoy it. Thanks a million again, Amit.
So thank you, Sankara, for speaking, and hopefully we will connect more. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Amit.
Have a great day. Bye.
Thanks.